imagine two gears, and like the bottom gear being your subconscious programs, like the things that you've embodied, and the way you live your life when you're just on routine. And the second gear, or the top gear, is your conscious hopes and dreams. And the frustration that you feel, the friction between those two gears, right? So if you feel frustration, like that's the area where you need work. Like that's the area where your subconscious is grinding against what you really want and saying, no, sorry, you can't have that. Like they got you this far, right? Those emotions created the life that you're living right now. And so in a way, we have to say like, thank you, because, you've gotten me to where I am now. But you, as in the programs or the emotions, are limiting my life to this experience. And so I would like to thank you for getting me this far. And I got it from here.
There's a reason why we're not achieving our potential, let alone even reaching our goals and desires. It has to do with self-sabotage. And it's these hidden patterns that wreak havoc for us by causing us pain and discomfort. And this happens because we don't understand how to navigate through our cycle of awareness. Thankfully, today, my guest is an expert in guiding people through a transformational process that moves them from self-sabotage to healing deep wounds. Now, before we're going to get into all that, I just want to remind you to hit like, subscribe, and share on your favorite platform so you can stay updated on the latest content while helping me grow the Awakened Man message. And for that, I just want to say I'm truly grateful. So with that being said, let's get on with today's episode.
The average man today is sleepwalking through life, many never reaching their true potential, let alone ever crossing the finish line to living a purposeful life. Yet, the hunger still exists, albeit buried amidst his cluttered mind, misguided beliefs, and values that no longer serve him. It's time to align yourself for greatness. It's time to become a revolutionary man. Stay strong, my brother.
So welcome everyone to the Revolutionary Man podcast. I'm the founder of The Awakened Man and your host, Alan DeMonso. Do you know what your go-to self-sabotaging behavior is? And do you have a framework for you to be able to overcome it? When I think about those questions, I have to say that for myself, the self-sabotaging behavior is to verbally beat myself up, and then I go ahead and I eat poorly. I do this to avoid the pain that I'm facing. So today is my pleasure to speak with my guest, Bissette, about his journey through self-sabotage and pain, and to how he developed a healing transformational process that freed him and many others that he works with. Allow me to introduce Bo. Bo spent the first 4 decades of his life punishing, mutilating, and demeaning and destroying himself. But somewhere along the line, he realized that those daily practices only made things worse. And despite his wishes to not move forward, he found a way. That's when he stopped trying to bury himself and instead started to lift. Today, Bo works with people to help transform their pain in their lives by taking them through a process called Amo Ni. Welcome to the show, Bo. How are things?
I'm great, Alan. How are you today, man?
I'm doing really good. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. You have such a unique story, and that's how I always like to start off the interview. Is we talk a lot in my work, men's work, about everyone being on a hero's quest or a hero's journey. It's that journey of self-discovery. And so tell us a little bit about your hero's quest and how that has paved the road for who you are today and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, it's funny, when I did some writing a few years ago. Actually, I've always been into writing, but Joseph Campbell's work, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, it talks about, the hero's journey and how they use that through movies and books to make a compelling story. And it's funny that, most of us live that very same hero's journey in our lives. So one thing that clicked with me when you were talking about when you're talking about things is like the way that you talk to yourself, and like, man, that is so important. I did the same thing, and I think most of us do the same things. I remember at one point I thought, man, I was like, man, I got voices in my head. Am I crazy? Like, why are it's just one thing that people don't want to talk about, right? Because I'm glad that you brought it up, but my own voices, just personally speaking, my own voices were so negative and so I would call myself a loser, and just why even bother? and just, I was horrible over and over. And like, that's the G-rated version of like the voices in my head. And, things like, I think like once we start, for me, I was so self-critical. Once I had one failure, it was like I used that failure to project into the future what I thought I would do, coming next, right? So whether it was a relationship or a business, or like when I was a kid, like I was big into sports, right? So it was like, I flubbed one shot on goal. So then like the next one was just like, I might as well miss this one too, right? Because I missed the last one. And yeah, those voices, man, they're so crucial to how we perform. Because like, if you're talking to yourself in a negative way, then like, why would you expect a positive outcome, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true, right? Been depending, and sometimes that voice in our head, that the how we're talking to ourselves, and we wouldn't even speak that way to a friend, but we do it to ourselves. And it's just, reading your story and some of the things that you've had to go through, and I just thought it was just so incredible about your transformation now. So tell us a little bit about how you came up to be able to stop all this self-sabotage.
Honestly, it was because I witnessed someone else going through some trauma, and it wasn't through my own. Because when I was 15, I wrecked my knee playing soccer. Then when I was 19, I was in a car wreck where I almost killed myself. I actually had a near-death experience. 2 years later, I was in that car accident. It was a single person car accident. I was drunk. I ran through a telephone pole. Sorry, crunched my car like a can. And then 2 years later, I did the same thing. Not in a car, but I was skateboarding drunk after a party and got hit by a car. And then, I ran in my late 20s. I just ran and ran and ran. I mean, not from job to job, but like I left the country, man. Like I moved from the States, I moved to Europe, I moved to Asia, I moved to Mexico, I moved back, and I was just all over the place, running and drinking and using drugs, like, I mean, heavy drugs too, just to run away, just to escape. And it wasn't until I was in Vietnam in my late 30s. I think I was like 36 or 37. And I lost a girl, I lost a job, I lost business partners that I was working on. Like everything fell to pieces at once. I was passing out on the streets drunk, like sniffing heroin. And I called my brother and I was like, man, I have nothing. Like I've bankrupted myself on pretty much every single level you can imagine. Like I don't know what else to do. I don't even know which way is up right now. I'm just like I've done it again. And he was like, all right, well, come back. We'll sort you out. So he flew me back to the States, and I started getting back on my feet. And I was staying with my aunt and uncle. And my aunt she came home one day. Her and my uncle went to the doctor together. And she came home and just started crying as soon as she walked in the door, before she told me. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And she was like, I've got breast cancer. And I was like, oh my God. Mm. And so at this point, I was staying with them and I was working. I was doing freelance work. I was doing some freelance writing work. And that's how I was getting back on my feet. But I was drinking profusely. I was knocking back like between an 18 pack and case a day. And I was drinking Jack Daniels at night just to put myself to sleep. Wow. And I was like, dude, look at this. Like, here's this woman who's worked her butt off like her entire life. They didn't have kids, but they, been really successful in business and stuff like that. And I was like, here's this woman who's done, most of the things in life right. And, she might, who knows what's going to happen. She has cancer, right? And here you are, late 30s. You've done everything you can to like kill yourself. Yeah. And you haven't succeeded. Like, I was like, dude, you gotta like this, like get with the program, man. Like, this is whatever you're doing is not working. And so from that moment on, like, I was just like, all right, I'm stopping drinking, man. Like, and I did. And I started reading stuff. Like, I mean, I read from that time until a few years ago, I'd read like hundreds of books, like dozens of courses. I traveled back to Asia to do all kind of obscure healings and trying to get myself sorted, and things like would move the needle for me, but my self-sabotage was so deep that I would take a step forward, and my subconscious would allow me to take a step forward. But then, my conscious mind, but then my subconscious, my program would take over again, and boom, I would crash again. So it was like one step forward, one step back, not two steps forward, because I wasn't making any progress. I would just go from and having a little bit of hope and go, oh yeah, this is working. Then pow, nope, it's not working. It's like, oh, why? Just so frustrated. And the funny thing is, the frustration that I was feeling is what I've realized is that is the fight. When you feel the frustration, not like 100% of the time, but like when you feel frustration in your life with something that you're trying to do and you're not able to accomplish it, then that is the subconscious. Imagine two gears, and like the bottom gear being your subconscious programs, like the things that you've embodied and the way you live your life when you're just on routine. And the second gear, or the top gear, is your conscious hopes and dreams. And the frustration that you feel is the friction between those two gears, right? So if you feel frustration, like that's the area where you need work. Like that's the area where your subconscious is grinding against what you really want and saying, no, sorry, you can't have that. So if you can find that, if you feel that frustration, that's where like, all right, man, I need to work on this.
Yeah. Hey, that's a great analogy. Love that idea of the two gears, right? And how that those hidden patterns that you call it, that's working in the subconscious area of our lives. Really, we think we're making progress, but we're really just doing a shuffle and we're not really moving anywhere.
Yeah, you're not. We're just like stuck in the same pattern, right? It's just like, the thing is, like these patterns and these, the patterns, they start as like as a trauma. And most people think it was trauma is like what I was talking about earlier, like my car accidents or, my parents got divorced when I was 12. And actually that's what kickstarted my running, because when they told me I ran out of the house and I ran away for the day. And I didn't realize that until I started doing this healing work, like that's where my running started. But like, it doesn't have to, the definition of a trauma is just an emotional response, right? It's the heavy. And, it doesn't have to be like, a PTSD, like from war or like a car accident, trauma, an emotional response can come from your mom, like, scolding you at the grocery store for when you were a kid, when you picked up a candy bar.
Yes.
Or, your dad coming home from work and you running up to hug him, hey, Dad, welcome home. And he's like kind of brushes away because he's had a long day, he's tired, and just, he needs some time to himself, right? Or it can come from somebody looking at you wrong, or like, being in a room when two people are arguing, like stuff like that is trauma. And we embody, which means we hold on to these emotions. We store them in our body. Like our body is kind of like, the iconic scene in any movie or TV show. You've got like when they show high school, they show like the hallway littered with lockers. Or our body is like that, but it's never, instead of books and papers and old notes and whatever, these lockers in our body, we hold emotions. And like when we connect with and release these emotions, there can be an actual physical response to the release of this emotion. Sometimes it's the emotion, we refeeling that emotion as it leaves. When I first started going through the work that I do now, when I'm at my healthiest and strongest, I'm about 78 kgs. You guys use kgs in Canada?
Yeah, we sure do.
Okay. So I'm about 78 kgs and about 178 centimeters. So, I'm pretty lean and fit, right?
Yeah.
Well, when I started going through this work, I was, 78, and I went down to 68. I lost 10 kgs, not from fasting, not from, changing my eating habits. I just lost that weight as I was connecting with these emotions and moving them. And like I said, like we hold on to these bodies. My body was like cleansing itself of these emotions. I'm back to my weight now, but that's what happened as I was going through this progress. It is amazing physical process when we connect with these emotions and move them and learn how to reframe our lives. And based on what we really want, not what the subconscious is programmed.
Yeah, I love the analogy of the, of the locker rooms and, carrying all these emotions, and totally agree, that our bodies hold these things. And it's why some of us struggle with our weight. And when we finally can able to tap in and start to release some of that toxic emotion that we're holding, can really change our lives. It's a great analogy. So at some point you must have been pretty frustrated with all of this. So why do you say that frustration is so important for people?
Because the frustration, like, it shines a spotlight on where the work needs to be done, right? Like let's say if you're frustrated, if you're trying to lose weight and, and everything you're doing, like consciously you want to lose weight, right? But then there's always something that keeps you pulling you back into, eating wrong, or not exercising, or just not treating your body right. There's something there, that frustration of you trying to lose weight and not being able to do it. There's something there that you need to work on. There's some kind of subconscious program that you need to uncover, connect with, and release, that is keeping you from losing weight, that is causing that frustration. In my case, it was the running. Every time I got frustrated with a relationship, or every time I got in an argument with my partner, and also with drinking too. I mean, drinking was a huge thing for me. Even arguing, I was feeling frustrated with my partner. Like there were things that there was programs that I was holding on to that was perpetuating these arguments and creating more friction in the relationship. So, by uncovering all of these things, like, life just gets smoother. It just gets, I'm here to tell you, like, I've been through, that I've connected with and released and moved but I still, there's still stuff that I go through.
Sure.
Life doesn't just magically, put you on a cloud and send you through with angels, hovering around you. There's still challenges. For example, my wife and I got COVID like a month ago, and so that was something we had to deal with physically, and then also emotionally. Have you had COVID?
Yeah, pretty sure I did back last January for sure.
Yeah, man. It was really, the physical part was it was all right. It was kind of hung on for about 10 days, but it was never really overbearing. But for me, the mental part, it was really difficult to deal with, an emotional. Absolutely. I got pretty sad and depressed there for a few days.
So I mentioned in the intro, I talked about this transformational program that you've developed. Now, I don't know if I pronounced it right, but I got Amo Ni.
Man, you got it right. Exactly. Amo Ni.
Amo Ni. So do you mind telling us a little bit about what that means, what the program's all about, and how it came to be?
Yeah, no problem. So when I came back to Taiwan, after I was staying with my aunt and uncle, quit drinking, got back on my feet. I moved to Vietnam. That didn't work out. So I moved to Taiwan, and I found this woman, and we hit it off immediately. And she's now my wife. And as good as we were on our good days, we were equally bad on our bad days. And it was just, we were just so amazing together. But our arguments, they're just gonna be so brutal. And it got to the point where it was with the last argument we had, the really big one, it was all right, we either got to sort this out, or, we got to go our separate ways. And a friend of ours, who's a Buddhist monk, introduced us to a guy who does some work. It's called The Spiral. It's created by an Australian guy. And so I was my wife and I are look, we've both done all this work on our own. We need to look for outside help. And so I was I'll do whatever, so I went with this guy, and the first session that we had was completely transformative, unbelievable. We connected with my emotions. We found the subconscious programs that would, for me, that were around my self-worth. And I believed that I wasn't worthy of the things that my friends had, which is why I had, bankrupted myself financially and physically and emotionally and just with alcohol and just running away every time I mildly got successful, right? Or started moving in the right direction. I would self-sabotage. So I connected with all these things and just, things just started changing immediately. And it was just, it was the most amazing experience. And then I remember asking him as I was going through this process, I was like, dude, like, addiction, like for me, like I hadn't been drinking for a few years at that point. And I was like, if we're connecting with these emotions that, that are self-sabotage and my alcohol drinking, my binge drinking, that's not normal. If we connected with these emotions and we moved, I should be able to drink again. And he was like, man, no, I would not recommend that. So I was like, all right, well, we'll see. And I finished up with them, and then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try it, man. I really think like I have a belief that, that's the case. So one weekend I had a glass of wine, next weekend I had two, the next weekend I had like half a bottle, and I was like, I could feel that monster waking up. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not finished, man. Like we scratched the surface, on what I need to do and what I need to take care of, but like we didn't get what I really, we didn't get the good stuff. So, and at that point I was still like, having some big arguments with my wife still. So I took what he had done with me and I just went deeper. And I found, I found all the programs that I was storing against my addiction. And then also with, the really nasty outbursts that I was having with my wife. And I used that and created this system called Amo Ni. And Amo in Spanish means I love, and Ni in Chinese means you. So Amo Ni together blended means I love you. And I use two different languages because Amo Ni is it's a collection of different healing modalities. We use muscle testing to find the emotions that you're hiding, that your subconscious is holding on to. Then we use a meridian chart. And the meridian chart is basically like a map of the emotions and where they're located on their body, or on our body. And so we use the muscle testing to find these emotions and where they're located. And then we connect with them on a mental and physical level. Once we find out where these emotions are, I have the individual try to connect with any memories that are attached to the emotion. If they're none, that's fine. Then we go into the body and we connect with where that emotion is. Then we use what it's called the Amo breath. Again, Amo in Spanish means I love. So we're actually breathing with love. So it's a 3-part breath, and with the A and M, Amo, we imagine light coming down through our crown into our chest, and with the M, was so it's and that humming actually stimulates the vagus nerve, which is an emotional reset in itself. And then as we're stimulating the vagus nerve, and we're mentally and imagining that light that we brought down swirling around in our heart center, which is our healing center. We collect the energy or the emotion that we've connected with into that big healing ball. And then with the O, we imagine it shooting out of our chest. There was a cartoon in the 80s called the Care Bears, and they like shot love or luck or whatever was their superpower out of their chest. So it's kind of like that.
Right on.
And then at the end of each session, we use neuro-linguistic programming. We use some creative visualization to reframe where they are and kind of grease the wheels of intention and send them further down the path of their hopes and dreams. So nice. It's a powerhouse of like modalities all wrapped into one to find the emotions that are controlling your life, remove them, appreciate them, and as you connect with them, because these emotions that we have, like where we are right now, that whether you're feeling stuck or frustrated, like the emotions in the programs, aka emotions that you're storing, that your subconscious held onto, like they got you this far, right? Yeah. Those emotions created the life that you're living right now. Absolutely. And so in a way we have to say like, thank you, because, you've gotten me to where I am now, but you, as in the programs or the emotions, are limiting my life to this experience. And so I would like to thank you for getting me this far, and I got it from here. So that appreciation is just gratitude. It's a lot of people talk about gratitude and appreciation, how important it is. I truly agree that, it's embracing it's just as transformative itself. So I mean, I use a decade worth of experience based on the stuff, all the stuff that I've been put myself through, and then also the healing work that I've done to basically really change a person's situation. Like, and it's just amazing experience.
Well, and what I like about your description of Amo Ni is that you're coming at it from all these different ways, right? You talk about the different modalities, and I think that's probably why the key to your success is, and why it's so powerful, is that it's not just focusing on one aspect, because all of us process things differently. And so
exactly,
you're coming at it at such different angles that it just seems to, it helps to release that emotion, that trauma piece. So this must have done wonders for your relationships. How did it transform your relationships, and how does it do that for other people?
Man, that's a good point. The thing is, like, relationships is like, people, when you say relationships, most people think of like, with your spouse or your partner, or with your mom and dad, or, brother and sister, right? But we have a relationship with every single thing in this world, right? Whether it be the computer that you and I are communicating on right now, or the car that you drive, when you go to the grocery store, or the clothes that you wear, or there's a relationship with every single thing, and even non-things like thoughts and feelings, right? Mm-hmm. So, to be able to connect with because our emotions are the foundation of our experience here on life. We are spiritual beings in physical bodies having an emotional experience here on earth. And, as soon as we're born, and in fact, not long after we're conceived, when we're in our womb and our system comes online, we are processing energy from our outside, our mother's womb. Like if she experiences an argument, we feel that argument, right? And then if she's experiencing love, we feel that love. And then as soon as we're born, we're out in the world, our subconscious is grabbing onto everything that it can get its hands on. Not literally, obviously, but everything that comes into our realm, the subconscious is grabbing onto, okay, so this is when this situation happens, then we react this way. When this situation happens, we react that way, and such and so forth, right? So we're basically, the subconscious is programming us to respond, because the subconscious is also in control of our heart rate, our breathing, our hormones, like everything, all the internal stuff that's going on that we don't see. Like the subconscious, that's the domain of the subconscious. So anything in the exterior world is like, dude, like, okay, what's the first response? All right, I'm gonna hold on to that. That's how we're going to deal with that from here on out. Which is why, like, we as adults, decades later, after an initial response, we're still being controlled by that response. So the way that we feel about sex, love, money, food, exercise, work, you name it, peanut butter jelly sandwiches, whatever, is influenced by the emotional reaction of a kid. So when you can find those programs, when you can find those emotions that are dictating how you feel about every relationship that you have, the relationship change. And it happens every time, right? With any relationship that you have. Like my life is just, like I said, I still have rough times, right? But my life is just easy now. Like I'm not in my way anymore. I'm not holding myself back anymore. I'm helping other people go through, and find their own emotions. And, a few years ago, I was barely even able to help myself. In fact, I was just doing everything I could to basically stay alive. And prior to me stopping drinking and going on this healing path, I was doing everything I could to kill myself.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. Right.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense, and the other thing I'm getting from this is that the amount of self-awareness that you were able to come up with. And I noticed in getting ready for the interview today that you have some different, you talk about self-awareness coming from a lot of different perspectives. I wonder if you could touch on some of those today as well.
Yeah, no problem. That are controlling your life. You find these emotions that you program, that your subconscious is programmed, and you connect with them. And it's a funny thing happens. It's kind of like a kid like standing out in the yard like blowing bubbles. I was always a kid running around and popping the bubbles, and it's like when you pop those bubbles. So once you hit that bubble and pop it, like it's no longer hit. It is then that is the self-awareness. And it's like you realize, because there's so many things, there's so many micro thoughts, micro deeds, micro things that we say that they're running under the surface. And those are the programs that we're running that are installed or running based on the emotions that we program. So these things that we're doing, saying, thinking, feeling, they're all and even like the energy that we're giving off are all influenced by emotions that we program. And when we connect with those emotions, it's like, boom, it's like a light bulb moment. It's like, oh my God, I've been saying this. I've been doing this. I've been talking to myself this way. When my wife comes at me and, says something, then I react this way, and I perpetuate the what would be like a healthy argument into a big fight, or if my boss says such and such, then I do this and I react this way, which is what messed me up from getting that last promotion. Or when I'm in traffic and blah blah blah, like there's so many things that we do that we're not aware of, because I don't know, Bruce Lipton, who's like a famous psychologist and self-help guru, like he says 90%, so I'll go with what he says. But like 90% of our daily life we spend running on routine, right? And Absolutely. So, whether we get up, brush our teeth, we go to work, we have a coffee, then we take a break, then, like we do the same thing every day. And when we're living in routine, that is the domain of the subconscious. And when we're living in the domain of subconscious, we're running on those programs. So finding those programs and releasing them helps you get out of the restraint that those programs are holding you in. So I believe like Eleanor Roosevelt, she said one time, like she does something like not new, but she tries to do something uncomfortable each day. Mm-hmm. And I think that is so key, because by doing that, by pushing yourself out of your comfort zone just a little bit, I'm not saying you have to run a marathon every day, right? But it's just like, instead of sitting on the couch, I don't know, go play some chess or do something that stimulates, read a book, or, go walk around the block or the neighborhood or whatever, right? But by doing something that pushes us just a little bit each day, we stay ahead, or we stay outside of those programs. So we're constantly growing just a little bit each day. Then we're living in a conscious world, and we're pulling ourselves out of those unconscious programs that we're forced into when we're just doing our routine. Yeah. So, and we can even get caught in routine doing exercises and stuff, right? Sure. So that's why it's like good to you run an 8-week program, then it's like, all right, change it up, man. Because then, you know exactly what's coming. Your body knows what's coming. Your muscles know what's coming. So it's like switch up your program, go from doing weights to kettlebells, go from doing kettlebells to yoga, just constantly moving and expanding and changing.
Yeah, totally love that. And it's so true, right? As we change those experiences and we challenge ourselves a little bit, we force ourselves to come at it from a different perspective.
Exactly.
And the other thing I was thinking of is that, probably the other thing that we do is we also like to label things in our lives, right? Whether we're labeling ourselves as not being good enough or whatever. But tell me a little bit about how limiting that can be for us when we start using labels in our life.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Alan. Like, labels are one of the worst things that we do to ourselves, right? By creating these labels, like I am, and we do it in like, we might think it's healthy, right? I am vegetarian, or I am a weightlifter, or I am, whatever, right? But that label, you just box yourself in, right? You just limited yourself to whatever is attached to that label, and you can experience nothing else, right? You cut off life's flow by just saying I am blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and it's just really a dangerous thing to do. I think like healthy living and eating vegetarian is fine. Being a vegetarian, you might want to reframe that, right? Because sometimes it's good to step out of the vegetarian box a little bit, right? Maybe eat a little piece of cheese, or I'm not sure how what the parameters are for vegan and vegetarianism and stuff like that. But anyway, just experiment, explore. Don't box yourself in, because those labels, no matter, even like for example, and I'm not love my parents, they did a great job. I'm totally not throwing any shade their way, but like when I was a kid, my mom was like, "Oh, I had trouble with math." And my mom was like, "Oh, Bo's bad at math like me," because my mom was bad at math. Apparently somebody told my mom that she was bad at math, right? And by her doing that, like, she put this thing on me that, oh man, I'm not good at math, totally, like, that is totally the wrong thing to do.
Absolutely.
So anyway, like, I mean, she didn't know any better. So like I said, I mean, I don't hold it against her, but it is, it's just really those labels, and we do it to ourselves. We do it to others, we just really be careful about, that word I am, right? Or he is, or she is. It's just be careful.
Absolutely. Anything that comes after those first two words we tend to pigeonhole ourselves into whatever that is. And so it's so important, So with all this work, you must have been able to also, it must have been a profound difference for you in other parts of your life. So how did this help you remove the glass ceiling that a lot of us live under?
Man, it is it's no longer there. Like I don't feel any limits. I can't tell you, like, going through me building my business, like the Amo Ni business, the last year has been like such a transformative experience. I think that, like, if you're looking to grow, and you're looking to really find and see yourself transform on so many different levels, I think building a business is a really good way to do it. And I've tried multiple times. I mean, I can't imagine. I can't remember how many businesses I've tried to start and failed at. But now it's just under such a different, there's no umbrella, just under different circumstances, because that ceiling is no longer there for me. And I'm expanding in so many different ways, and I've learned so many different things, and I've grown in so many different ways. And now I'm able to take that growth that I've experienced, not only through the healing work, but then also through the process of building my business, is that helping other people do the same, right? And it's just amazing feeling. I mean, my relationship changed. It was funny because not long after I went through this work, like, I was teaching English in Taiwan at the time, and then not long after I went through that work, I got another job, like an offer, and I was like, I'm good, I got a job, like I don't need work. But it was actually a job working online, something I've been trying to do for, I don't know, years and years and years. And like this job just came to me. And then like, the next thing I know, I started helping people with Amo Ni. Like that just kind of like fell into place. Like I just started getting introduced to people who knew, what I'd been through. And it was just like, things just started happening. And I mean, there was a lot of hard work involved too, but, just, it's funny, just things like, things just started like falling into place. And it was pretty, pretty cool, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got hit the nail on the head. If you really want to discover stuff about yourself, start a business and you'll find a whole lot about yourself, my friend. That's for sure.
Exactly.
So listen, of everything that we've talked about today, and maybe we have something we haven't touched on yet, what would be the one takeaway you would want our listeners to remember?
I think like, and I've said this a couple of times, just, it's okay to be selfish, not in the way that you just push people away, like only interested in yourself. I mean, the subconscious is the most selfish entity you'll ever encounter. But consciously, it's okay to be selfish a little bit, sometimes to put yourself first, to put yourself first, to go through, to start focusing on the things that you need to do to become the person that you become. Now, because I'll tell you, my father died, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. My uncle died a year after him, and they were both died in their early 70s. And both of them died because they put other people first, right? Yeah. It was always, I'll get healthy when blah, 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 right? But he was always, my dad especially was like, we're always looking after, me and our family. And then he was a financial person and CPA. So he's always looking after his clients and doing extra stuff for them and like always putting everybody first. And man, my dad died in his early 70s. Like that's young. Like he still had, another 10 to 15 years of life that he could have lived and, time that he could have spent with his grandparents. And he didn't have that because he didn't put himself first. He didn't take care of himself. So like just start today, just do little things, to put yourself first. They teach us the same thing. Like when we get on an airplane, right? One of the first things they teach us is like, or tell us as they're going through their little presentation, is like, if in case of an emergency, put on your mask first, then help whoever else. Right. So it's, it's the same thing, like taking care of ourselves is like, it's like putting on your mask first, right? Get yourself sorted because, then you can take care of everybody else.
Absolutely. So true, man. I love that. Love that. And I just want to say thank you so much, Bo, for spending time with me today. We packed quite a bit about transforming and healing our lives. So if someone wanted to get involved with you and your work and get involved in any programs that you have, what would be the best way for them to reach you?
First of all, I want to say thank you, Alan. I really appreciate you sharing your platform for me to, share my story and, get the word out for Amo Ni. So much thanks, my friend. Thank you. The best place to find me is on the website. I'm doing some free healing webinars coming up, so you can sign up for that. You can also, if this resonates with you and you'd like to reach out, I've got a contact form on the website. You can also, my email address is also on that page. So if you don't want to use the form, you can send me a direct message. I don't bite, if it's just, I'll help you through this work. If it's, there's something that you're ready for. If not, like, I'll be the first one to tell you, like, this is not for you. So, anyway, the website is amoniclear.com. So
perfect. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure I put all that information, your website, all your social media contacts as well. So folks get an opportunity to reach out with you one-on-one and do some work. I just want to say once again, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, man, back at you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Revolutionary Man podcast. Are you ready to own your destiny? To become more the man you are destined to be? Join the brotherhood that is The Awakened Man at theawakenedman.net and start forging a new destiny today.